Hello, everybody out there in Radio Land. You are once again listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. As always, the following thoughts, views, and opinions are not necessarily those of 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm, or I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Following thoughts, views, and our opinions are not necessarily those of 89.1 WIDR or Western Michigan University, no matter how dope or insightful they may turn out to be. This is a weekly program where, of course, we dig underneath the headlines to tell y'all what is really going on, looking at issues from here in Kalamazoo, the state of Michigan, the so-called United States, and the rest of the world from a working class perspective, generally trying to dig underneath the headlines and call out the BS. Again, today is election day. Here in the city of Kalamazoo, there's some big, important municipal elections going on all over the country. Perhaps the most high-profile one, they are voting in New York today for their new mayor, which many are saying might be end up being a social democrat, democratic socialist, Zoran Mamdani. Well, of course, again, we'll have all those results next week. But I also, want to make sure that y'all know that there is an election here today in Kalamazoo. We are voting for mayor. We are voting for city commission. There's also a very important bus millage that we are voting on for Metro Transit here in the Kalamazoo area. So, of course, we urge you all to get out there to the polls if and you can. If you want to know more about the candidates who are on the ballot, we did an election feature last week where we really kind of dug deeper into everybody who is running. You can find all of that information online. We have Media Cyphers on YouTube. You can also find our podcast on most podcasting apps. That is Media Cyphers Kalamazoo. And yeah, we have some extensive election coverage last week that can hopefully make you or give you a more informed opinion going into the ballot box today. So yeah, go ahead and check that out. If you are still undecided or you need to know a little bit more about the candidates, later on in the program, around 1 o'clock, we're going to be joined by a special guest from Protect the Preserve. We're going to be talking to them about what is going on with the Asylum Lake Preserve. As many of you know, and this is a story we've been covering for years, there was a local car wash guy trying to acquire that land for a car wash for a number of years. There is a new wrinkle to that story, but it does look like somebody is trying to acquire that land for development. And once again, the people of Kalamazoo have to, say, to paraphrase that one ubiquitous meme, how many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man? So we will be interviewing somebody from Protect the Preserve around 1 o'clock. So please stay tuned for that. Coming up next, let's go ahead. I want to talk about, while we are on the topic of environmental preservation and community efforts around that, I wanted to draw your attention to something that happened down in Pavilion Township just last week. There was discussion from a private equity firm or a real estate company, Franklin Partners LLC. They were proposing to turn a plot of land on South 26th Street and East North Avenue into a new data center. Now, if you're not familiar with some of the controversies that have been propping up with these data centers, these are basically the engine that is powering the big AI, you know, I guess like the Valley people might call it a revolution. I would call it a bubble. It's really on the cusp of bursting. And for those of you who don't know, whenever you use Chat GPT or OpenAI or any of this other stuff, it does use a lot of resources. A lot of attention has been drawn to the amount of fresh water that it uses. I think by some estimates, every time you put a prompt into Chat GPT, you're basically dumping out a bottle of water. So it used a ton of freshwater resources. We've had stories from around the country of how the excessive energy use and pollutants end up causing a lot of environmental issues in the areas that they're developed. We've seen a lot of this in Memphis, already a city racked by a lot of poverty, being essentially turned into a sacrifice zone by a lot of these adjacent data centers are polluting the air and water around them. And of course, that energy use also comes back around to hurt people in their pockets because the outsized amount of energy that these data centers need to power artificial intelligence ends up uh, increasing the energy bills of the surrounding areas, sometimes by a matter of like two, three, four times what you were paying before. It's again the speculative AI bubble that is all the rage with today's ruling class is subsidized by the working class. That is, again, we tie everything back into capitalism, and man, that is capitalism, baby. It sure is. To see this speculative technology that really quite isn't there yet, basically being subsidized off of our labor by the extra charges on our energy bills. And the people of Pavilion Township were at least paying enough attention to be able to come in strong numbers to their zoning meeting to bring up these concerns. Just to quote some of the citizens who showed up at those meetings, a Vicksburg resident, Caitlin Clary, said people feel very surprised and blindsided, and that it was going very, very quickly. According to them, there's been major pushback from community members at township board meetings, beginning with their concerns over electricity usage. In other communities, there have been quite an increase in electricity costs. Some communities, they're seeing a 20% increase. Residents are also worried about the thousands of gallons of water needed for cooling at the site and its environmental impact. In other communities, we've seen generators get used a lot more for these plants, and it affects the air quality in local communities. A lot of times, they're using dirty fuels. It will now be taken off the township board's agenda for the remainder of the year. And uh, as Clary went on to say, it's nice to know that it's someone that's listening who is not just trying to do whatever he can to push through what he wants. I don't know what will happen come after these meetings, but as of right now, it's really nice development to hear that he really wanted to slow things down for the community. This is referring to um, Don Shoemaker, the co-founder of Franklin Partners LLC. I've warned the people of Vicksburg. I guess again, a lot of these folks who come into the communities to build these data centers, of course, will try to be nice and polite, but at the end of the day, those environmental issues that come out of data centers, whether you get a Dickensian villain showing up saying, I don't care what you think, we're building this thing, or somebody says, we're going to listen to community input. It's still going to use a ton of water. It's still going to very likely upcharge your electricity rates, and it's still going to cause environmental impacts in the area surrounding, both for wildlife and human beings. So again, uh, these sorts of promises really need to be taken with a grain of salt. But it's good to see that again. And I think there's often this narrative that you only see like blue-haired liberals or leftists showing up at these types of meetings to protect their neighborhood. And again, this is a generally rural area of Michigan, and I think it brings me a pause for hope to see that no matter where you are in Michigan, people are ready to. They've been paying enough attention to this issue to understand the impacts, and they are able to rally sufficient forces to slow down, to pause, to prevent this sort of um, exploitative infrastructure from being built up. So hats off to the people of Pavilion Township for making their voices heard and putting a pause on this data center. Okay, we're going to take a quick little break, come back. My co-host will be joining me in just a few minutes. Keep it locked. This is Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. You can also find us online at YouTube, Facebook, or the Media Cyphers Kalamazoo podcast you can find on most podcasting apps. Keep your dial locked. This is Media Cyphers, your source for political revolution. All right, everybody, we are back. This is Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. Joined by my co-host Lawrence. Lawrence, how are you doing this afternoon?
Oh man, I'm good, man. I'm good. Trying to get everything ready for this. Trying to hope and pray that everything goes well on this election day.
That's true. Yeah.
There's so many people, so many stories, so many progressives that are running in Minnesota, in New York. A lot is riding on this primary. Primaries are important. I hope people go out and vote.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I think like a lot of attention has been paid on Zoran Mamdani in New York, but Minneapolis is also facing a really high profile election where we have I'm trying to remember his name. Hold on, sorry. It was oh yeah, Omar Fateh, who has kind of the same democratic socialist bona fides as
He is
Zoran
he is
is.
the he is the Zoran of the Midwest.
Hmm.
He is running against an establishment Democrat that Tim Walz, who's a progressive, should not have endorsed. So this hurts my feelings. I like Tim Walz. I thought Tim Walz was good,
Wait,
but the
Tim
fact
Walz
that
endorsed the incumbent, or
he endorsed the incumbent.
yeah,
But here's the thing:
yeah.
Ilhan Omar, who's in that state, she endorsed the progressive. She she endorsed our boy, so
Mhm.
our brother in arms.
Mhm.
So that's a great story. I also want to remind y'all, Abdul Al Sayed in Michigan. We need to back him because the APAC funded candidate is getting a lot of attention. If you've seen her recent interview, it was horrible. It was bad. um, and yeah, I mean, yeah, you need to vote in primaries. You need to vote in off elections. Today's an off election day. You know what I'm saying? Like, we
Yeah.
got to get out there and make our voices heard.
Yeah. Oh, just to clarify, the Senate primary. So Abdul still got a lot of runway. That is not until next August, but yeah,
I
still
know, but
lot.
I'm just saying
Yeah.
we gotta lock in.
Oh yeah, yeah. And there might be some momentum. There are, yeah, like you mentioned, there are a lot of races across the country where you have people on the progressive left who are running very viable campaigns. And it would be nice. It would be nice to have some good things happen once in a while.
We we need we cannot take our boot off the neck of these fascists, and
Mhm.
we cannot let the neoliberal centrists continue to slow walk us into fascism.
Mhm.
So we gotta keep pushing. This is
Yeah.
the if you went to the No Kings rally, this is where these moments where you need to make sure that your voices are being heard.
Oh yeah. And again, the biggest thing I would say, like again with no king stuff, is the biggest impact is here's my challenge. The next time there's a no kings rally, uh there's always tons of different organizations that are passing out pamphlets or recruiting or something. Get involved with one organization. Pick one that is near and dear to your heart, because again, the thing that is really going to make an impact. It's a good start, but you got to get involved in sustained, disruptive organizing. And I think that a lot of people were doing some
Facts,
really great work in Kalamazoo to make that happen. But yeah, that's that
facts.
that's the secret ingredient, folks. And especially at a time when the the head of the country is basically saying let them eat cake while they build a ballroom. It's good
Oh, no,
to
no, it's
get
it's not even let
organized.
them. Dog is not even let them eat. That's a story that we are going to talk about today.
Mm,
But it's not even let them eat cake because they defunded Snap.
yeah.
They defunded Snap. They've cut Meals on Wheels. It's let them look at ballroom. It's not even let them
Yeah.
eat cake. It's let them eat ballroom.
I did want to give a quick update on that because I did an extensive piece on it last week, but some of you may have heard a few judges have ruled that, hey, you gotta get that emergency funding going. The Trump administration says they are going to fund half of it, and this is becoming a big fuster cluck. Nobody really knows exactly what that means. Like, so does everybody get half of their food step budget? How is this going to work? And Of course, it is pointing to is there was some emergency funding, the USDA, that they were legally bound to use. The Trump administration was basically politicizing it, trying to use it as a political wedge, blaming the Democrats when, look, we criticize the Democrats a lot, obviously. They're the one piece of the two-party capitalist system, yeah, yeah. But if you're going to do a reality check, it is the Republicans who have been out of session and who have been, twiddling their thumbs, refusing to go back to work. And the Democrats, to their credit, are trying to at least preserve people's health care. So, you got to give them some credit where credit is due. There were efforts made
That
in Michigan to try to stopgap this funding. There was a proposal to use Michigan funds to help fund people's food stamps and the SNAP pause. Much derision was pointed at Matt Hall from Richland, who's the current. He is the House Speaker, and basically said he was going to block that, and he called it fake, performative, and political. Um, which, like, look, brass tacks, like, nobody's gonna fall for that kind of political mumbo jumbo when it's very obvious. It's like, okay, you are stopping Snap from being funded. You are stopping this stopgap from occurring. It would be in your political interest to let it happen. And again, maybe again, he's just so deep in the pocket or up the butt of Donald Trump and his administration that he's just going to follow the marching orders regardless. But something you do see with more of these local Republicans is they see the effect this has there on their electorate, and they're willing to at least let some aid come in, or at least spin it in such a way that's like, it is me, it is I saved you from starving. But Matt Hall is apparently, again, really acting as a lackey of the Trump administration, using their political position to try to keep food from getting to Michiganders' mouths. You,
I also want to add. I want to add to that because there's been a lot of discourse of people saying, "Well, we need. This is where food banks are going to have to step in." I want to remind everybody for every one meal that a food bank is able to provide to a family, SNAP provided nine. For every one meal, SNAP provided nine. This is coming from this is coming from internet nonpartisan organizations that studied this. So food banks are not designed to handle the demand that is going to be asked upon them because our government decided to say let people starve. Food banks are a support. They are not the foundation. Like SNAP programs, Meals on Wheels, those things are the foundation. Defunding those will make the supports snap like toothpicks.
And it's important to point out too that, like, many, even speaking locally, but this is true around the country, food banks were already very stretched thin. The idea that they could just rise to the occasion of this new demand is some magical thinking. And that's not to say
Oh,
that a lot of food banks and yeah.
Extraordinary thinking.
Yeah,
It's not
people
just
are,
magical.
I want to kind of give the tip of the hat to a lot of local organizations have really stepped up, local businesses as well. Midtown is offering like these $40 fruit and vegetable vouchers to people with SNAP cards. The Kalamazoo Farmers Market is offering kind of free fruits and vegetables. Some of the stalls are
I,
to
and,
EBT
and and
recipients.
also and also I want to remind everybody the when it comes to rural areas, and not just rural areas, but also uh big cities, uh major grocery stores benefit from EBT and SNAP benefits. This is a double whammy on the system because now grocery stores like Walmart and Meyer, Hardings, and those in local small grocery stores that are in rural areas, they're cutting into their profits. And if those places shut down, we're going to have an emergence of food deserts again,
Mhm.
massive food deserts. So, what do you think people are going to do? And this is my thing is at the same time that people are going to starve, grocery stores will no longer be able to hire employees but keep their doors open. How do you think people are going to react when at the same time they cannot eat? The president is holding a Great Gatsby party, a 1920 style
Ugh.
party
Yeah.
at the White House. Like we forget what happened after the 1920s and
Yeah.
why what happened directly after the 1920s when they cut and deregulated uh industry in this country. We had the Great Depression. It's about to get very bad for folks out here.
hmm one aspect of the story I didn't really talk too much about last week, and I thought, now that I have you on, I think it's definitely worth diving into, was there was a story that some of you may have heard about Fox News running an AI generated video that features
Oh yeah.
basically like very stereotypical black folks saying something like we're gonna ransack the stores, or literally one of the AI generated characters saying it is the taxpayer's responsibility to take care of my kids, which by the way was never said by a real human being ever. That's the most mechanical thing ever. But the real story with this is like it is if you put 80s style racist campaign ad into an AI generator and it spat something out, it would spit out the video that Fox News ran with. And it
Oh
like,
yeah.
yeah.
It's not just Fox News. It wasn't just Fox News. It was the Daily Wire. It was multiple or news, and I say that loosely, news organizations that believed that this AI slop was real. And you could tell that it wasn't real because one of the kids didn't even have an arm. One of
Ugh.
the kids, one of the kids' arm was halfway missing, and the movements of the kids in the backgrounds of the videos were on repeat. Like they didn't it I understand that we live in an age and time where AI videos are and deep fakes are real, but all this does and reinforces the it's the what's the word um it just confirms the bias that you already have, confirmation bias, right?
Mhm.
If you already believe that this is what people were doing, you're gonna believe that video no matter if someone tells you that it's fake or not. And it's only going to make our jobs as people who care about news, media analysis, and things of that nature, it's only going to make our jobs worse because now everybody needs to. You should be double checking, triple checking your sources anyway, but it's only going to be making our jobs even worse. And for those who don't care, for those who do not care about uh, the framing of these issues, it's only going to reinforce their narrative.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
that's the worst part of it. That's the worst part of it. Outside of
And
it, just lying and
oh yeah.
demagoguing people,
Hmm.
like we're back in the '80s. And
Hmm. It's a very old trick, and of course, the reason that it gained traction and why they deployed the video as such is because they, you know, we can break down the statistics. Most EBT recipients are actually like, poor white people from rural areas. That's
so
just how the
so let
numbers
me
break down.
so let me
However,
let me break that down for you real quick. I'm sorry. 38% of people who are on food stamps are white people. 27%. This is coming from not the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is coming from this is I let me find the get the website. Uh, but no, the statistics is 38% of food stamp recipients are white people. 26% is black. Uh, 21 not 21, 18% is Latino. Uh, 12% is Asian, and the rest is other. Over 65 to 70% is of food stamp recipients are working full-time jobs, and that same percentage is in red states.
hmm yep,
So again, Democrats are trying to save Republicans from hurting themselves.
yeah, and of course, like a conservative propaganda they have to lean into is this idea that it's going to they are preventing, again, they're preventing these urban city dwellers, black people,
Yeah.
from gaming the system and stealing money out of the pocket. It's a very old tactic because as we've explained on the show, the reason they create these narratives to try to pit working class and poor people against one another is to distract them from the fact that rich people are stealing money from us by the hundreds, by the thousands. I mean, we started this story talking about data centers and how those high energy costs are subsidizing the AI bubble. The so
And it is a bubble.
mhm.
Let's also be
Oh yeah.
very clear. It is a bubble. It's not
Hmm.
going to last. And just like the .com bubble, it will burst. And when it does, it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's something we've warned about for a long time, these AI videos being used in media. And unfortunately, with the and I'm going to do kind of just a quick hit about this, but it's worth bringing up. Uh, you know, uh, to the extent that you had some outlets who were critical or had the capacity to say honest things, that's going to be inhibited. The CBS takeover by Larry Ellison is in full swing right now. They recently laid off um, dozens and dozens of journalists in their climate department who were doing the best to tell their truth about climate change. There's also been a mass of layoffs over at Teen Vogue, which, if you haven't really followed Teen Vogue in recent years, especially in the last 10 years or so, they have been one of the few mainstream outlets that talks about political topics like Marxism and progressive issues and social justice. And it's essentially their entire political department is basically been neutered, and it's going to be go back to being something more akin to Tiger Beat. Um, so yeah, the,
Uh,
the the very
uh,
few voices that existed in the mainstream media to speak truth to power are being mowed down as we speak. And the proliferation, I think, of this sort of like these artificial videos to try to inflame the culture wars while the class war is being inflicted upon us, I think is only going to increase.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. I pretty much agree with all that. I think the other part of this is that who does this benefit? When we always talk about, we always ask our audience to talk about the analysis to analyze things um from a class, caste, race, a multitude of perspectives. But the one thing that you always should ask yourself is who is this benefiting? Who does who does the the racist meme. The right wing just got caught in a group chat talking about how they love Nazis. How
Yeah.
black people are, how black people are watermelon people, right? They just did this. They just did this,
Red-handed.
right? We just had a Michigan representative that
Oh yeah, the
was
councilwoman. Yeah.
like we just had a
Yeah.
Michigan representative who also loves Nazis, right?
Yeah,
This is the
literally.
same
Her,
state.
so yeah, her husband is one,
Yeah.
and she's like, "We just have to agree to disagree."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We just had, and again, and I'm bringing these things up because I'm like, who does this benefit? The farmers, the farmers. We talked about it before with the tariffs. The soybean farmers, some of them are have to sell their farms, sell their livelihood, sell their livelihood because of the tariff war that they're doing, and that doesn't benefit them, but it does benefit the big agriculture that can buy their land, the same big agriculture that donates to the Republican Party. It's not cutting. We have billions to give to Nicaragua, to El Salvador and other countries. We have billions to give to Israel to continue their genocide. We had
Mhm.
billions to destroy a piece of the White House. And these are the same people who said that they don't want to destroy, they don't want Black Lives Matter or other people taking down Confederate statues.
Oh
This
yeah.
man is just destroyed a piece of the White House to create a ballroom. So, and all of that is millions of billions of dollars. And they're cutting food stamps. They're making your premiums on your health care higher. And this negatively impacts red states, their voters. I have never seen a plan to screw over your own voters and your own voters be like, please, sir, may I have more? Like, I don't. That's the thing that bothers me about this entire situation. I'm happy that there are right wingers and
Yeah.
people who are speaking out now. But at the same time, y'all voted for this.
I think, that's the, the really like cynical way, but it's also an honest way to look at it is that's where the culture wars come in because even some of the, not all of them, but some of those people who are suffering, you can kind of exploit their innate biases and racisms and disdain for the ideological other side that you and your media apparatus have been uh, generating to tell them, hey, you might suffer a bit, but that person who is exploiting the system is going to suffer more. That person you
Yeah,
don't like is going to suffer more. There's even there's a JD Vance quote that I think boiled this all down where they really said the quiet part out loud. It's like, hey, you might suffer because of what we're doing with healthcare and tariffs and all this other stuff, but we're going to be mean to brown people through ICE. So it's all going to be worth it. It's just like I'm
yeah,
paraphrasing, but that's
like
basically what
I,
he said.
yeah, I think I agree with DL Hughley. We have Argentina steaks and Argentine beef that will be coming back to the United States. Too bad you won't be able to eat any of it because we are losing more jobs now than we lost during the pandemic. If you're working at the latest jobs numbers,
Yeah.
more
Wrap your
people
mind
are going
around
to.
that. Like that was like a
Yeah, we
catastrophic
are.
global event.
Yeah,
So
we
is the
are.
Trump
We are.
administration, apparently. But
So yeah, we are. We are letting children who, again, this is during, and I want to remind people, this is during the school year. There are children in this country. I think the last study that I saw, it was 1 out of 4 children go to school, and the only time they eat is when they're at school. They don't. Their families, uh, even though 70% of people who are on SNAP and get those benefits have full-time jobs, a lot of times the that's not covering what they need to buy food. It's not. It helps, but it's not enough. So we're letting children, veterans, single parents, all when it comes to the culture war, every time when we are talking about policies that affect the average American, we are harming them for the benefit of the billionaires who are in office right now and the people who are in power, because they do not want the Obamacare subsidies to continue, so people can buy mandatory health care or get subsidized to buy mandatory health care.
Yeah,
It,
absolutely.
it
Oof.
it is a failure. It is a failure on the Democratic Party, because this is a fantastic time to be like, look, this is the reason why we need single payer healthcare. That's another conversation. This is why we fight for our policies, because these troglodytes are going to actively harm you to serve you up as a part of to to feed you into the machine that will help keep their donors happy. This is what the argument should be from the Democrats. But this is why where you get your media from, where you get your information from, and who's telling you is also important, because we people tried to warn you, and then you had other people who tried to normalize this, which is another story that we're going to get into with
Yeah.
Joe Rogan and a couple others. But I need people to understand that these policies do not care if you're a Republican, Democrat, or Independent, socialist, communist, or whatever, because hunger does not care about those labels.
Nope.
It hits everyone. It hits everyone. And you can't feed your family on "I hate immigrants." Like, I need
No,
people
you
to
can't.
remember that.
No, hate
You
hate
cannot
will not fill your stomach. Yeah, this.
yeah, yeah. You cannot feed your family on "I hate immigrants, I hate black people." You cannot feed your family on "trans people shouldn't be playing in sports." Okay, like that's not how this works. I need people to remember that.
So I wanted to kind of transition this next story. Again, we're going to have our guest on in about 15, talk about Asylum Lake, but there was a big national story that is breaking right when I was getting up this morning. And okay, I'm going to imitate a centrist real quick to drop this news. It's like, beloved statesman, a father and grandfather, uh, and stalwart critic of the Trump administration, Dick Cheney, has passed away this morning. And that's,
Okay, wait.
yeah,
I'm gonna play. Wait, now let me play everyone else who has a conscience. Look at
okay.
God, won't He do it? No, I'm just
Mm,
joking.
yeah,
I'm sorry. I'm joking. I'm joking. I don't want us to get kicked off the air. I'm joking.
yeah. Well, I mean, I
God,
think it goes back to something that was this is kind of rattling around when Charlie Kirk passed. It's like, if you want respect in death, then you need to be worth respect in life. And
yeah.
yeah, Dick
Uh,
Cheney,
so,
boy, oh boy,
so two things can coexist at the same time, right?
yeah, hmm
Dick Cheney was a father, a grandfather. He was a husband, he was an uncle, right? And as a Christian, um, I do feel sorry for the family. You know what I'm saying? A loved one passed away, a loved one passed away, it hurts, right? With that being said, that this man is the architect of the war on terror. There are millions of
yeah,
lives of dead women, children, soldiers who did not get the health care they deserved because they uh, went to war uh, in countries that did not attack us. Dick Cheney and George W. Bush, their legacy is imperialism, colonization, and bigotry for 8 years. 8 years of bigotry, of racism, of colonization and imperialism. Um, they uh, put our economy on a death spiral, and this is this that time. I remember we're old enough to remember that we were in middle school, high school when these people were in power, and they manufactured consent to send our countrymen to ransack and colonize and destroy other countries for resources and oil, and they lied to the American people to do so. The mainstream media helped them lie
Launder
to
those
the American
lies.
people. They
Liberal and
laundered
conservative
those
media
lies.
alike, by the way. Yeah.
Yes. So I cannot. I hope that in his later years in life, as a Christian, I hope that in his later years in life, he was able to find Christ. But even if he found Christ, I don't think God would let him in heaven. If we're looking at the things that he did, then that's just me being honest. If we're going by the principles of Christianity, which he said that he believed in, you know, taking care of the immigrant, or taking care of the stranger, feeding those who are hungry, sheltering those who are homeless, you know, loving thy neighbor. These are the same campaigns that weaponize homophobia to win, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the same campaign that when John McCain ran, that talked about that helped weaponize John McCain's black daughter as a weapon. This is that same administration. Um, the war crimes that they did in the name of freedom and justice in the American way helped shape where we are now. He
Oh yeah.
is
Mm-hmm.
and he is and will forever be one of the most horrible human beings to ever have a seat of power or power in this country. And his legacy echoes as a reminder of what we do or what can happen when we let demagogues and intelligent, psychopathic, sociopathic monsters in power.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this
Uh,
man shot one of his friends. He
oh, it's
shot
true.
one of his friends.
Talking with his friends
He
and made
shot
his
one of his
friend
friends.
apologize for the scandal. Forget
like,
about that.
you know what I'm saying? Bro, that is the that is the that is the least of that is the lowest that's the lowest fruit on that rotten tree. That is the lowest fruit
Mm-hmm.
on that rotten tree that he did. It is that he was a part of, that he was affiliated with. Dick Cheney and his family needs to give all of their riches to charity and then never appear again in public life ever again in their
Yeah.
life.
Mm-hmm. If only we were so lucky. Yeah, it's again, he lived. That's the thing. He lived out a full life, not in The Hague, but quietly, comfortably at home. Now, I'm sure he's going to spend the next few
Yeah.
thousand years playing bridge with Henry Kissinger and all that. But
Yeah. Yeah. I
um,
hope that
yeah,
I hope that they are playing I hope that they are in the eighth circle of hell playing playing surrounded by the wailing souls of every the wailing screams and souls of everybody that they have killed, and I hope that the people that they killed is in heaven.
yeah.
Just
Mhm. I did want
yeah,
to respond to something I have already been seeing that is very cringeworthy. Is like some people are appealing to like he was from a different time in our politics once we weren't so divisive, and he was a critic of Donald Trump. And I want to make very clear, especially some of our younger listeners, the current historical moment we are living through right now would not be possible without Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney was a big proponent of the unitary executive theory, which, just to, really in a nutshell, um, basically push this idea that the basically that the executive branch should have sweeping general powers, which would grant those. Yeah, sorry. We had our connection drop there. I hope we didn't lose too much. But what I was basically to sum up in a nutshell, I was talking about how Dick Cheney pushed the unitary executive theory, which we are seeing the fallout of right now. This idea that all of the power should flow through the presidency, which again the Trump administration has been using to a great degree to try to justify their authoritarian overreach that they've been engaging in, and going back to the war on terror, what we are seeing now in Latin America, and again the Trump administration beating its chest, talking about a potential invasion of Venezuela. Some of those very same lies and talking points that were workshopped under Dick Cheney are being deployed today. I literally saw somebody in Trump's administration talking about how the Venezuelan people will greet us as liberators. That is verbatim what they said would happen in Iraq, which, as most of us know, turned into a violent quagmire that led to the death of hundreds of thousands of Iraqis and thousands of American soldiers as well. Um, yeah, so yeah, the idea that anybody should give a cookie to Dick Cheney for opposing the Trump administration, or his daughter for that matter, is hysterical historical erasure, because the Trump moment we're living in would not have been possible without the actions of Dick Cheney.
Facts, 100% facts. It's not even close. Dick Cheney and George W. Bush, um, in that administration, the that those that Heritage Foundation and those organizations, the Lincoln Project, all of those people that were associated with Cheney and the things that Cheney has done, like nah, like they should never be brought up in public conversation without the reminder of how they harmed not just this country, but multiple countries around the world. There should not be a moment that if those names are brought up, that we don't remind people these people are the reason why we are in the situation where we are in today.
Oh yeah, no, 1,000%. I don't really have too much else to say, other than, was it crab dance, as the as the young people do on the internet.
I'm not.
But
We're not gonna do anything else more because we don't want to get canceled. But
yeah,
Cheney, school will be open on Cheney's birthday. Um, he is he is not someone that you should want your kids to be like. He was a horrible human being that killed other human beings. If he was not the vice president, he would be one of the greatest serial killers of all time.
yeah, pretty much.
Like, yeah,
Like literally. Yeah. All right.
literally.
Okay, so I think what we're going to do now, we're going to take a break. I've got to go get our guest for our next segment. We're going to be talking about what's going on at Asylum Lake. Everybody out there, keep your dial locked. This is Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR, or online at widerfm.org. You can also find us on Facebook, YouTube, and the Media Cyphers Kalamazoo podcast. You can find on most podcasting apps. Keep your dial locked. This is Media Cyphers, your source for political revolution. Hello again, everybody out there in radio land. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR, or online at widerfm.org. We're joined now by my friend Josh from over at Protect the Preserve. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing fairly well, all things considered.
Okay, so this is, as we kind of talked about this at the top of the show, this is unfortunately not an unfamiliar topic on our program, and we've been having to talk about it for several years now. But for those of our listeners who maybe need to be brought up to speed or unfamiliar with it. So could we go back to so when this all started, relatively speaking, to there's some land nearby adjacent to the Asylum Lake Preserve, which was going to be developed for the use of a car wash. I believe this was back in 2000 and was it 21 or
Well, yeah, it all started in 2017.
2017? That's
Yep,
right. Yeah.
and it was October 2017 that this land changed hands. And so, like you said, this is a roughly 19 acre parcel. It's just to the north of Asylum Lake Preserve, and it borders the north side of Asylum Lake Preserve, and then the corners of Stadium and Drake. And so that's how many people recognize this property is it's that wooded property. If you're on Stadium Drive at that corner of Stadium and Drake, the southeast corner of that intersection. It used to be part of a homestead. It was a colonial homestead built in 1840, and sold by the I don't know maybe even great grandchildren that of that legacy. And so it was sold in 2017, basically to the highest bidder. As you could tell from that corner, the north side of that corner has been highly commercialized, while the south side remains natural. And that property has always really been a naturalized property. They used to mow the grass, etc. But it's always been a natural property that folks using the Asylum Lake Preserve have come to know and to be familiar with that natural property. And it really provides a buffer for the preserve. It does a lot of things which we can talk more about. But basically, yeah, this goes all the way back to 2017 when a car wash developer, commercial real estate developer, bought the property. They attempted twice to bring a rezoning request to the city on their own. The city of Kalamazoo also attempted one major attempt to bring this zoning change from the current zoning, which is residential, to a commercial zoning, which would allow for development. That was in 2023. The reason this is still ongoing is that the community has continued to show up to advocate for this property and what it means, not only for the community, but for protecting the preserve.
Because just for our listeners who may be a little bit unaware, um, the individual who was trying to build the car, he didn't just come once and was like, ah, well, I have my answer. It's been two or three times in the years since 2017. And we're kind of seeing a new chapter of this right now. Before we really dig into that, I was wondering if you could maybe just get maybe a little bit deeper into some of the environmental impacts that could occur when we're talking about development of that parcel land. Just real quick, you've got 131 very nearby, that Costco, that whole commercial strip is over at the other corner. What are some of the biggest environmental concerns about that piece of land being developed?
Yeah, and that's really the crux of this, of the resistance, the community resistance to commercial zoning on that land, is that we're talking about a situation where Asylum Lake, which is a freshwater reservoir for our city, it's connected to Portage Creek and the Kalamazoo River. It's a source water for those water bodies, and so it's fed by water that falls west of Drake Road, and that water seeps into the ground in natural areas such as in the preserve, and it feeds that lake through those freshwater springs. Now, those freshwater springs through the years have been uh, modified in the upper watershed by the Costco development, by the old 1970s commercial development, which is still up there, by the highway, certainly. And what all of those things have done has turned that groundwater into stormwater on those properties. And when we have stormwater, it falls on those hardened properties. The water rushes across the concrete, picks up all of the pollutants from automobiles, and there are many, many pollutants from automobiles that, in the last 50 years, just more and more we're seeing just how damaging those kinds of pollutants are to water systems. And now we're talking about not only just exhaust from those cars, but one of the main issues in Asylum Lake is actually runoff containing chlorides. Now, this is coming from winter road salting on commercial parking lots and on roadways, and that's all just rushing down into the lake. Now, even when developers use these underground stormwater systems, those chlorides are still infiltrating into the groundwater, and it's creating a situation for Asylum Lake that's literally turning fresh water into salty water. It's reducing the amount of oxygen available to the lake, preventing its natural cycles, harming the aquatic environment and the ecosystem that depends on it. And it's harmful to all of us who enjoy the preserve as well. So when we're talking about environmental damage on this, potential environmental damage due to this proposed commercial development, and we're talking about water, certainly, but we're also talking about damage to the ground, the permanent topography. The topography of this parcel is very complex. It falls steeply down from Stadium Drive toward the lake, and then it actually rises back up in some areas with these kind of complex hillsides. And so to create a commercial development in there, they would really have to erase most of that topography that supports that natural groundwater spring that is Asylum Lake. And so we really just have to understand that these two parts of the land, while they're disconnected by parcel lines, they're absolutely connected by the land. And so other things we're talking about, air pollution from when they would remove the vegetation, strip that away, expose all that soil that's volatilized into the atmosphere. That atmospheric deposition can cause, can settle in the lake. That sedimentation can cause algae blooms. When we're talking about loss of oxygen, we're looking at things like fish kills in the long term. So there's all sorts of potential issues that we're already grappling with at the preserve that are just going to be exacerbated by what's being proposed here.
As I mentioned, there is kind of a new wrinkle in the story. It is not, again, the Rise and Shine car wash coming back again. One of the more recent developments. And forgive me, I don't know a ton about this, more just kind of what I've heard from friends and individuals who were at the last zoning meeting. But apparently that parcel has been sold from Rise and Shine to a commercial developer from Grand Rapids. What I've heard is
not sold yet. It's in the process.
In the process of being sold. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Could you maybe tell listeners a little bit about like any new information about like who this new developer is, how they have spoken about the site, and any old or new concerns that may have been raised based on that?
Absolutely. And so, yes, the community is very familiar with the car washes. And so when that was the proposal for development, it was very easy to see an example of how that would be inappropriate for this piece of land. And certainly it was easy for the community to rally around that. And so we as a community are kind of leveling up to a new boss phase here of resistance where it's more amorphous. And so this is going to be a new challenge because in the last few weeks, what has been brought forward is that, as you mentioned, this is a commercial real estate developer from Grand Rapids, and they don't have a plan for this property, is what they've said, beyond getting it zoned commercial. They're asking for the heaviest type of commercial zoning, CC zoning, which would allow it would allow strip malls. It would allow shopping centers. If we think about the north side of Stadium Drive, those are all CC properties. With special use permits down the road, it could even permit things like gas stations, car washes, and automobile services. And so it's a new challenge. Now the developer and their legal representatives came forth and put on a mandatory public meeting. These are mandatory meetings as part of the request for rezoning. And that's basically what they told the community that showed up with many concerns. They basically said, we just want it zone commercial, and then they believe the developers will come in and take advantage of that. And that's their plan. And so that's not a great plan. um, and it's wow, I got to tell you, there were a lot of people who were upset having been through this for nearly 8 years now, and to hear a developer come in and say, "Well, I don't need a plan. I just know that if I get it zoned commercial, as a commercial real estate broker, developers will want to develop this property." And so there's a lot of new angles to work with on this. Certainly, we can. The most important thing we can do is show up and tell the city commissioners, the planning commission, and the city staff in the planning department that this is an inappropriate zoning change request. That the heaviest type of commercial zoning, and certainly many would argue, including myself, that any kind of commercial zoning in this on this land would be inappropriate and lead to damaging results for the environment, for Asylum Lake Preserve, and for the community at large, which has been advocating and bringing forward these public concerns for now nearly a decade. And so again, I would say the most important thing we can do is make our voice heard to the city, because again, the city of Kalamazoo has been trying to push this change through. They're desperate for that commercial zone tax dollars. They are desperate to not get into a legal sort of battle with the property owner regarding what they believe to be their property owning rights. However, the current property owner bought the land zoned residential. They did not do their due diligence of getting it zoned commercial before they bought it as a commercial zoner or developer, rather. And so it remains residentially developed. So residentially zoned. And so from the community's perspective, the best thing we can do is to maintain that residential zoning. And now residential development here could be damaging as well, absolutely. However, when we're talking about these zoning districts, the only, residential zoning allows open spaces, parklands, and preserves. In fact, the preserves in our city are zoned residential because that's the closest thing the city has to open space environmental protection zoning, which is another thing we're advocating for, is a separate district to be applied to the preserves. But to be a green space zone. But for now, what we're saying is the most appropriate is this low intensity residential development that could allow for this property to be protected, restored, and preserved. Now, one of the kind of craziest things that the developers are saying is one of their main reasons for saying this is appropriate for commercial is that there have been unhoused people who have taken residence on this property throughout the years, and they've been forced to leave behind, their hazardous waste as they've come on and then been kicked off. And so they are claiming that, well, this property is damaged. There's all this waste left behind. The best thing we can do is just wipe all of this out, just erase it, clean slate, pave it over. It's just mind blowing when you look at this parcel. Really, it's clearly linked to the lake and to the preserve, and so people just continue to keep showing up. And that's the main thing we can do.
So I have two more big questions before we get to the kind of details. I know there's a big zoning meeting coming up on Thursday, but my first question is, and you've already answered this to an extent, but as you mentioned, this is close to a decade that this has been a struggle to protect the preserve. Why do you think there is such a persistence to keep trying to zone this area commercial, despite the fact that, residents of Kalamazoo have come out again and again and again and again to vociferously say, like, no.
Yeah, and I'll reiterate that there are really two things that the city is pushing for here, and one is that they got themselves into a pickle in 2017, at the same time that this parcel was that this property, it was formerly three parcels, now it's combined into one, but the same time that this property was bought, the city was publishing its Imagine Kalamazoo 2025 master plan. In that master plan, there's this thing called a future land use map, which is a suggested guide for future zoning or future land uses throughout the city. The city staff made a decision when that property was purchased by a commercial developer to put onto that future land use map that this property was appropriate for future commercial land use. And their argument was that, well, it's part of the Stadium Drive corridor, there's other commercial buildings nearby, and so it'll fit in. But if we think about that, that they really said, okay, well, this has been bought by a commercial interest. We again, the city is desperate for tax dollars. Commercial development, they believe, will bring that benefit to them, and so um, and so what they've done now is just repeatedly, and the developer and the city repeatedly gone back to that future land use map and said, well, look, it's right here on the map. It could be zoned commercial in the future. Um, and yet, at the same time, they say they have a public participation policy that guides these things. Yet, all of the public comment, all of the public participation about this property and its future land use and its potential future zoning has been against their recommendation and has been for a less intensive zoning, which would continue to protect the Asylum Lake Preserve. And so, again, it's being pushed forward in this way. This property is right next to the highway. Developers see this property and say, oh, well, it's a waste of, potentially commercial land. But guess what? They look at the Asylum Lake Preserve, a 275-acre preserve, the largest in the city, that thousands of people, visit regularly. Every day, people are out there visiting, and it does so much for our community to have this land protected. They see that land and say, "What a waste of land! That could be commercial development." And so it's this mindset of potential extraction that the city and these commercial developers are pushing on open space lands to say, well, look at all the wealth that could be extracted from this, but where is that wealth going? We know it's not going to be funneled back into the community in a serious way. These are out of town developers, you know, they're seeing dollar signs, and that's the real conflict that's happening. It's happening all over the country, all over the world, where it's this, seemingly clash between dollar signs and environmental protection. And this is our little microcosm of that happening in Kalamazoo. That people are just, we've had it, and we don't, we're not willing to accept that fate for this property.
So this is going to be my second to last question. I, as this has been such a long struggle, it's worth wondering, what would be kind of like the ideal solution. And I'm thinking too that this is election day, and we might be getting some new politicians up at City Hall. But what would be a long-term solution that you think would, again, having to stop having to fight this battle every seemingly like year and a half to
Yes.
protect the preserve? Like, how could we really kind of defend this area, from that kind of extraction in the future?
Yeah, and I've been involved in this conversation for many years with many different people, stakeholders from, very from the community, community organizations that are, environmental conservationists in our community. And really, the best thing that could happen to this property, if we wanted to, if we want to protect it and to protect the preserve, is for an entity. Now, this could be this could be an existing entity. It could be a new nonprofit. It could be some sort of entity that funds could be raised or leveraged to support a purchase of this property. The if the property could be purchased by such an entity, with a plan to manage it and link it to the preserve to restore the ecosystem, which would not take much relative to other places because it is already a natural space. It would take some work, but it certainly is within the realm of possibility for those in our community who are already doing this work. And so, really, what we need is a continued collaboration of our local organizations and individuals who are interested in this to really continue pressing forward with this idea. Now, this kind of collaboration was attempted in 2023. However, when the landowner was approached, they gave a very exorbitant cost that they were asking for this property in the range of 10 or more $1 million. And let's remember that they bought it for 2.5, which was $1 million over the asking price. In 2015, I believe, there was an assessment of the property that said, oh, it's probably worth about 750 to 1.2 million. So again, these commercial, bet hedgers are saying, oh no, it's worth 10 million now. Well, $10 million is a ridiculous amount of money. And when we're thinking about fundraising, when we're thinking about, bringing in, investors who are, maybe environmental philanthropists, we need a realistic goal. And so, perhaps at that time they were just, trying to kind of get to close off that sort of effort, but we don't know. That's all conjecture. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of money needs to be brought forward in this way. Now, folks have said to me, why doesn't the city or the county step in? The county is spending a lot of money right now on its projects downtown. Let's come together to recognize the importance of this land, protect it, put it into a conservation easement, um, enact those kind of conservation tools to help protect it in the long term. Bring in the sort of endowment fund that the Asylum Lake Preserve already has to keep it protected as a long-term preserve. So those are the kinds of ideas we need to be pushing forward as a community.
Yeah, and just to
Never
give
has
my
seven
two
thousand
cents,
dollars.
again, this has
Wow.
been a very
Now does
long
he have
struggle, but
$7,000?
the more difficult, the
Oh
collective
my
community
God.
makes it
Oh,
for
how does he have
commercial
$7,000?
developers
Oh,
to make
oh.
a profit off of this, and
I
to
need I
stall
need
that
to get more
zoning,
of.
the less incentive they have to try to, again, try to price us out of it. If you make it that's the only option or one of the only options they have, that might bring the price down. Again, not just speaking out of my butt. This is how a lot of these kinds of efforts have worked, but it does take a long time, and it also depends on how stubborn the particular developer is. But I digress. I want to thank you again for taking time on the show to explain this situation to my listeners. And Thursday, there is another zoning meeting over at the Kalamazoo City Hall. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, kind of what you're asking folks to do and what the message, from Protect the Preserve should be at that zoning meeting.
Absolutely. And so, it's not a digression because this is really critical that we continue to show up at these city meetings. And so, yeah, the first one and the most important one we can focus on right now is this Thursday evening at 7 p.m. at City Hall. And what the community is rallying around is to bring the Planning Commission a clear message that we need to deny this request for CC commercial zoning at 4301 Stadium Drive. And the Planning Commission is required to consider the following questions, okay, in their decision to which would be passed to the city commission, and that's: is it consistent with the city's master plans and strategic visions? Are there conditions that have changed that support the zoning change? Does the request address a community need? Are there proposed changes are the proposed changes compatible with the surrounding properties? And will those changes result in logical and orderly development patterns? Now, the Asylum Lake Preservation Association has a lot of information on their website about how, potential ways we can answer these questions effectively to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission is required to consider these questions. And so when we're thinking about things like, would commercial development address a community need? Absolutely not. There's so much commercial development up there. We don't need more that would risk hurting the lake. Are the proposed changes compatible with the surrounding properties? Again, the surrounding property, the main property is Asylum Lake Preserve that this is a neighbor of. It's not compatible. The other property it's directly adjacent to is the Stadium Drive apartments. Not compatible with a housing area over there. And we certainly believe it would not result in logical or orderly development patterns. In fact, it would set a very bad precedent for developing on environmentally sensitive lands next to important natural resources. And again, are there conditions that have changed supporting this? Absolutely not. What the research has found since 2017, again and again, commercial zoning and commercial development is harming Asylum Lake. So the only changes that we've seen since that time are a worsening of that effect. And we're in a global climate crisis. So we need to be focused on what we can do locally to prevent that. So bringing those answers, again, you can find some examples of how to write letters to the city staff, to the city commission. Okay, so this Thursday, November 6th, 7 p.m., City Hall. That's the Planning Commission. They will make their recommendation to the City Commission, which will ultimately vote on this thing. That's on December 1st, okay? Same deal, City Hall, 7 p.m., December 1st. That's a ways away, so we'll have time to kind of mull this stuff over, think about our arguments, and bring those to the city commissioners, who again will vote. And the requester, the developer here, has made it very clear that even if the Planning Commission does not support this, they're going to take this to the City Commission. So it's everything we can do to just show up, bring our numbers. In 2020, what shut this whole thing down was people showing up to those commission meetings and saying, nope, we're not going to take this. Deny that request for commercial zoning on this property.
And just one quick follow-up question. You said you have like templates and such. Is that on your website or your social media?
Yeah, so Protect the Preserve is kind of a media campaign, a social media campaign that's one of many campaigns in our community right now, including folks from the various neighborhood associations that have been writing letters, and from the Asylum Lake Preservation Association, which is a community group that supports the preserve through volunteer efforts. So you can find links to the Asylum Lake Preservation Association.org website on flyers that are posted on Protect the Preserve Facebook.
We'll also post that in the show notes.
Yep. And again, that's where you can find some example letters to write. So,
well, thank you again for taking time out of your day to talk about this really important issue. I personally, I go down to Asylum Lake quite often, and I have a vested interest in seeing it preserved, and we don't need any car washes, strip malls. Don't, as the song goes, pave over paradise and put up a parking lot. So thank you again for coming on the show, and again for everybody that zoning meeting is this upcoming Thursday. That is going to be November 6th at 7 p.m. over at City Hall. All right, so thank you again. For everybody listening, we're going to take a short break. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. You can also find us online at YouTube, Facebook, and the Media Cyphers Kalamazoo podcast. Keep your dial locked. This is Media Cyphers, your source for political revolution. Oh, yeah. Hello. Hello, everybody. We're back. This is Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. Joined again by my co-host Lawrence. Lawrence, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good,
Mm-hmm.
man. That was a pretty good interview. We
Mm-hmm.
always need to make sure that we are protecting our land, protecting our people. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying?
Yeah,
We
yeah. I
want to
mean,
protect
yeah.
Asylum Lake. You know?
Mm-hmm. You know what? Here's an idea. Keep it residential. We need more affordable housing, and like, just we should set up some sort of like fund, or just like the folks we set up out there. It's just their job to like, work at the preserve or something. I don't know. I'm just spitballing, but yeah,
Yeah,
better than
yeah.
putting
Like,
like a freaking gas station or whatever I'm talking about.
yeah.
It's stupid.
We don't like as cool of a gas station as it would be. There's already a gas station over near
Yeah.
Asylum Lake.
Hmm.
There's
Yeah.
there's a multitude of places where you can get your car washed. What
Hmm.
we need is affordable housing.
Hmm.
Like let's do that first.
Yeah,
That'd be
yeah,
cool.
there you go. All right, so I got a couple quick hits about we're gonna talk about some national stuff. I did want to talk a little bit about and again, this is like this is a Michigan-based story that I think kind of just talks to the double standards of the right wing. So there was a rally last week up in Lansing. People who are righteously mad that the federal government is going to try to starve Americans. And They went outside. Representative Tom Barrett. He represents Michigan's seventh district, but he went on social media and he cried foul, talking about there was vandalism, a group of trespassers during a political rally of the left wing activists, and the vandalism in question was a bunch of sidewalk chalk with messages like "Don't let kids starve" and "Grow a spine" and help us afford to live, that sort of thing. And like the big disparity I want to point out here is again, he made a big deal about this on social media. It made the rounds, especially on some like local right-wing outlets and stuff. And how incredulous, like, just that it's the main hypocrisy I want to point out here is like writing sidewalk chalk on near somebody's window is not vandalism. It comes off in the next rain. And when you compare it to some of the, vandalism in action, in the reverse direction from the right, it becomes it is so ridiculous to hear somebody talking about the radical left doing a vandalism when you compare it to some recent things that have happened of like literally like assassinate or yeah Democratic politicians literally getting assassinated at their doorstep. Like it's like
Yeah. Uh, uh, it's so crazy to have a message about kids not starving that it's a public nuisance. How there's no way to show your privilege more than to say, hey, I have nothing better else to talk about than this sidewalk chalk that's near my house.
mhm.
Not on my property, near my house. Not on my property. It
Well,
is near.
congressional office, but
Right. It's
yeah,
by it's
yeah.
by my office. I see sidewalk chalk by my office. Like, okay.
They left such hateful messages as like, and I'm not kidding. I'm looking at a picture of this. It is a little painted pumpkin. Somebody painted a bunch of bees on it, and it says "Be better." Such
Be
hatred.
better.
Oh yeah. It's also
Yeah,
like this
it's
is a media tactic you find on both the right and some Democrats where they will be met with very sensible criticism, and they will play the victim. They will say this was an attack on my person or my ideology, et cetera, et cetera. Which it's usually again, and especially in this instance, it's just Americans using their first amendment right in like the most like peaceful and tranquil way you really can. Painted pumpkins and sidewalk chalk, folks. Seriously.
The tell me you're a Karen without saying you're a Karen. Like, like I cannot believe that they said these words that everyone should agree with. Like making sure that children don't starve.
Hmm.
That's your problem? That's your problem? That's the thing that you're upset about today? Like, come on, bro. Like there are times in life where I want worry that we as a society has hit that has ascended to our maximum level, like that we are no longer going to be a class that actually cares about other human beings, and it's stories like this that doesn't give me hope. They like
Mm,
that
yeah.
it fuels that nihilism, and I'm like, I don't want this to be fueled. But he's crying over sidewalk chalk. Like,
Yep. Mm.
yeah,
Ugh, seriously.
yeah. I think my quick so that's your quick hit story. Can I give my
Yep.
quick hit story?
Go ahead. Of course. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Since we're talking, speaking of non controversial controversies, uh Turning Point USA had an event, and Charlie Kirk's wife, I don't remember her name. Um,
Erika. That's right.
Erica,
Erika. Yeah.
Erica,
Yeah.
Erica, Erica decided to introduce JD Vance and well, introduce JD Vance and his wife, even though she did not say his wife's name, right? And proceeded to embrace this man with a hug, with a very affectionate hug when he came out on stage after saying, "No one will replace my husband, but I see things in JD Vance that are similar to my husband." Right?
Yeah.
This is a not. This story for me. This is a non.
But the internet memes about this have really been getting shared at a rapid clip. You've probably seen them already if you're anywhere like follow politics at all. But oh, Lawrence, you. Oop, uh, well, yeah. But yeah, you've probably seen the memes about again, like Erika Kirk, like kind of touching JD Vance's hair in a